Okay, I was just going to kind of give some comparisons here between the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution that eventually gets set up in 1787. So pretty much immediately following our Declaration of Independence, the states created their own constitutions, but then they kind of joined this loose confederation or perpetual union that we kind of consider it, that's more of a friendship rather than a contract, known as the Articles of Confederation. So shortly after we've declared that, we are trying to set up a government. As we know, it's basically a reaction to the previous tyranny under the King George III. So what we should kind of notice here is they could request, Congress could request states to pay taxes, but they can't really actually, levy these taxes, raise taxes. So pretty much they have no power to impose taxes at this point, and that's perhaps intentional because of the fear that they saw when taxes were laid upon them and levied so easily. There is no federal, state, or a federal system of courts at this point. They can't regulate interstate trade, so trade going from one state to another was not being regulated. It took 13 out of 13 of the states to actually make an amendment or create one. Each state is given one vote regardless of its size, and you can see how some states like Virginia would be a little upset over time, how a small state, perhaps like Rhode Island, could perhaps block anything legislatively. So it's kind of this small state, big state mentality that's going on. And the ability to raise an army. They can't draft troops, but they can call upon the states basically to contribute forces, which oftentimes they're not going to do, especially if like a rebellion breaks out in, say, Massachusetts. Georgia is not very likely to send any troops to slow down or stop that rebellion. So that's a very weak effort there, because we saw the presence of the troops under the British Crown and how that really angered a lot of people, so they didn't want to give the national government that ability. So again, to mention that no trade or control of trade between the states. There's a complicated system of disputes. If you do have a dispute, it's rarely that it's resolved. The sovereignty, as we know, resides within the states individually. And then for passing laws, even under this unicameral form of legislature, it took 9 out of the 13 states for any legislation to get approved, which is a very rare event at this point. As we will see on the other side, it's pretty easy for legislation to get passed under our new Constitution. So pretty much where there were weaknesses prior to this, we're going to see the establishment of a lot more strength once the Constitution's created. And we'll kind of understand that through the events that unfold, especially in 1786, 1787 with Shays' Rebellion. And that will be one of the other things I discuss. So just kind of follow along with those events. But here's kind of an outline. I've also posted this chart on Edmodo. Good luck. And the last thing I want to add before we let go of this topic was the thing that is pretty important to remember, too, that there is no chief executive under this form of government, under the Articles of Confederation. And we know that because it's a reaction to the power and tyranny of the king, so they perhaps had hopes of not allowing one individual to basically rule tyrannically over those people, so they divided the power amongst the various states. And you can see how that could cause ineffective government. So even if you do pass a law, there's no one there to execute and carry out the law at that level.